So hello and welcome to the video. I've just landed in from Oslo, which was the first of 10 flights I'll be taking, hopefully to secure platinum status with Finnair, which is the equivalent of One World Emerald, which is the equivalent of BA Gold. My second flight is going to be the feature of this video, and I'll be flying on American Airlines from here across to Philadelphia. I already checked in when I landed in Oslo this morning, and I had plans to go landside to be able to show the American check-in desks here at Terminal 3, but I thought I'd give Flight Connections a try, and it was amazing. I was through in about 3 minutes, all new scanners, everything could stay in the bag. It was a delight. So I can't show you the American check-in facilities here, but I can show you what the facilities are like airside. So of all of the ways I could have chosen to cross the Atlantic, why did I pick this one? Well, American has just taken delivery of some brand new 787-9s equipped with their new swanky business class seats. Only a couple of their airframes currently are equipped with these seats, so it's quite difficult to get aboard them. But London to Philadelphia is one of the first routes operating with them, and that's why I chose that flight for today. Now, I've seen a couple of reviews of this seat already, and it reminds me a bit of BA's Club Suite, which I don't really mind because I think that's a pretty good seat, particularly for someone a bit taller like me. But the challenge with American is, the seat can be fantastic, but is the service up to scratch too? The one previous transatlantic experience I've reported on American was actually pretty good, but the cabin was about 60% empty. So the big test today will be whether the service can match up with the seat. And some of those videos I've watched suggested that they were struggling to cope, given that the business cabin is now quite a few people bigger than it ever used to be beforehand. So I've got a couple of hours to wait now. Now this flight is going to be credited to Finnair, and I'm going to try and get in the first class lounges by showing my BA Gold status on the app and giving them my boarding pass with my Finnair status on it. I'll get access to the business lounges because I'm travelling in their business class cabin, but can I make my way into a first class lounge? If you'd like to find out and see what the flight is like, stick around.
Hi, I'm Matt and this is Matt's Planet. I aim to entertain, educate and inspire with my travel adventures from planning to execution. I'll show you how you can travel in style for a lot less than you'd think. So subscribe so you can come with me. I had 3 first class lounges to pick from at Terminal 3. I review all of them in this video, but I headed straight for what I think is the best of them, being the Cathay Pacific First Class Lounge. And I had no trouble getting in. The friendly desk agent overwrote the number the boarding pass had given her with my BA number in the lounge access system, and that was it. This lounge access system governs the behind-the-scenes payments that are made for accommodating sister airline passengers and doesn't affect the broader flight booking. I double-checked with her that Finnair was still on the booking, and it was. Quite an efficient process that the agent seems to be familiar with, and I was in. I asked her if lots of people have been doing this, and she said no. Well, wait until this video goes live. It's a lovely lounge, not that busy at around 10 AM, but it's not a huge space, so Cathay does have to impose entry restrictions at certain times of day, usually in the hour or two prior to Cathay departures. The coveted corner seat was taken, but I decided to head into the sit-down dining area for my 3rd breakfast of the day. I snapped a quick photo of the menus, paused for a closer look, and had no trouble getting a seat. Eggs Benedict this time, and the eggs were just about perfect. Om nom nom. I did overhear a server say that there was no champagne, although I did observe some guests with full glasses, but sure enough, there was none on offer in the self-pour section of the lounge. Odd, and I never quite got to the bottom of what was happening. Even so, it really is a nice lounge. Here's the food offering outside of the dining area. I was really looking forward to spending some time in this lounge's parent space in Hong Kong later on in this trip. Subscribe to the channel to see how those ambitions panned out. I don't particularly rate the American Airlines lounges at T3, but thought I should pop in as they were my host airline on this visit, and to see if the loyalty number hack worked there as well. And it did. No issues. The agent confirmed that I didn't want to change the number on the booking, and I was quickly in. One of the things I like about this lounge is that a glass of champagne is virtually forced on you as you enter. Moet Chandon that day, although American has just announced a new partnership with Bollinger. Many people regard that as an upgrade, although I'm happy with virtually anything cold and fizzy. The lounge was really busy with quite a few American flights departing around this time. It was actually quite tricky to find a seat.
It's a bit of a cavernous space that doesn't scream luxury at you, but it's a clear step up from the business class Admiral's Lounge next door. None of these people seem to realise that their ticket gives them access to the far superior BA or Cathay lounges elsewhere in the terminal. I found a seat and you can see how crammed in passengers are here. Cheers! The buffet is pretty good. Now, I was 3 breakfasts to the good already that morning, having eaten in the Oslo lounge, on the BA flight across to London and in that Cathay lounge, so I would not have been a taker no matter how good it looked. A respectable but not particularly premium spirits range was also available for self-pour. The second thing I like about this lounge is that there is a smallish sit-down dining area over the back there. I snapped a quick photo of the menu, nowhere near as extensive as Cathay's, but still a good facility to know about. And the third thing I like is the self-serve sweetie section found here. It's not quite the same since they removed the takeaway bags, so bring your own to carry off your jelly bean haul. Boarding was about an hour away, so I headed towards the gate, which turned out to be gate 42, the furthest possible gate from the lounge, and it took a good 10 or 15 minutes for me to reach it. But I finally did, and was able to get a glimpse of our chariot, as promised, a 7-month-old 787-9. Boarding was quickly called. The usual cluster of people who think that having Group 6 printed on their boarding pass means they'll be the first to board. I do make things worse by trying to be among the first so I can film the cabin without having to blur too many faces, but at least I'm entitled to board first. A moment's #boarding not boarding, but this was mainly so those boarding with disabilities could get clear before the masses arrived. Seat 1L for me. I still think this is a strange convention, as the L seats are on the right side of the cabin. L traditionally stands for left. Most airlines go up to K, but American skips a few more letters and ends at seat L. Anywho, into the cabin, and these are American's newest flagship business seats built on the Adient Ascent platform. As is the fashion, there's 2 types of seat within this cabin. 43 in the forward cabin and the smaller cabin behind the galley are regular seats, but the front 4 seats in each section, so 8 in total, are slightly larger, including mine. American calls these preferred suites. The word is that American will eventually charge a premium to select these seats, but when I travelled they were open to anyone to book and I was able to grab one. These preferred suites have a slightly different colour scheme. It's a good looking space with a comically massive bedding pile, all of which had to be banished to the overhead bins to be able to actually access the seat. Finally in, and most of the extra space is in front of you, including what looked like an enhanced foot cubby. And it is spacious. I'll go flat later, but there appeared to be plenty of width and height. A 3-point seatbelt, reading light and storage area 1, preloaded with headphones, which didn't leave a whole lot of room for anything else. IFE remote and charging points under there, and storage area 2 here, again quite small. Seat controls here, and no further storage areas made themselves known. The suite has a sort of mood lighting fixture here too, with a handful of light settings. There were overhead lights and air vents, so full marks there. A pre-departure champagne duly arrived in a plastic cup, as is standard on American. Not the greenest approach, but I guess it saves on the washing up. Cheers. Not a massive pour, but for once it was nicely chilled. No refills were offered and I wasn't motivated to annoy the staff by asking for any more. Storage aside, and the seat is good, but another drawback became immediately clear. You're almost in the galley in seat 1L, and before pushback it felt like every member of crew had to open every compartment in the galley to see what was in it before slamming the compartment closed, including some compartments that were actually my side of the galley curtain in the passenger space. Everything in every cabinet was then moved to another cabinet. It was really quite annoying, and whilst things were much quieter in flight, it did feel that seat 1L was as much a part of the crew space as it was a part of the passenger cabin.
We pushed back about 20 minutes late. No explanation was given, but 12:30 is a busy time, so it wasn't a big deal. The safety video played. Lots of teeth was the lasting impression I drew from watching it on this and on 3 subsequent flights. 3-point safety harness on and we were off, leaving continent 1 on my 4-continent trip around the planet. Slippers had been waiting in the seat. That form of footwear became a bit of a theme of this trip. I'll repeat my usual advice to keep your shoes on through takeoff and landing. You don't want to be running from a burning plane in these if you have to evacuate. The tray table is fully concealed under the TV in front of you and descends into position thusly. It's very sturdy given how far it has to protrude from the bulkhead to reach you. It would be possible to wriggle out of the seat with it deployed. A quick freeze frame here, and there's a couple more storage cubbies over there with strict prohibitions about storing anything in them for takeoff and landing. There's the amenity kit in the lower slot. So they're handy to have in flight, but they're not that helpful if you want stuff close to you for the full duration. One observation was that the table was slightly misaligned with you as a passenger. Not a big deal, but I found it inexplicably irritating that it wasn't square. One more seat feature and the armrest does rise and retract. I guess you could consider that to be another storage area, but it's not a hugely useful one and mine contained a previous passenger's napkin. Onto the amenity kit, served in a Brandon Blackwood bag. Indeed, the bag was probably the best bit of the kit, as the contents were fairly standard. Look, it's an above average kit with face mist, lip balm and lotion, socks too, to go with the slippers. I couldn't resist giving the facial spray a go. I realise I'm perhaps not the target market for this sort of product, but I didn't quite see the point. Let me know in the comments if I'm doing it wrong. Good for waking yourself up, I suppose. Here's the menu. Pause for a closer look, but it looked good. It looks like you get a choice of 2 starters, but you actually get both of them, with 3 choices of carnivorous main for the 51 seats. I think we were full that day too. A relatively narrow spirits selection, although I suppose all of the major categories were covered. Service began with a hot towel, then a tablecloth. Slippers became a theme of this trip, as did tablecloths provisioned by a team who seemed to have had no knowledge of the dimensions of the table the cloths would be covering. A drinks round followed, gin and tonic for me, with some nuts and olives. I didn't ask for 2 gins, but neither did I decline them when offered. Cheers! I'd been up for about 9 hours by this point, so it really hit the spot. I took the opportunity to check out the entertainment system as I enjoyed my gins. It offered a really good quality screen and plenty of options. I'll leave you to judge how good the movie selection was, as I have no real idea these days. It offered Bluetooth connectivity if you take your own ear devices, although I couldn't get mine to pair. I fully accept that this was my issue, not the system's. Although American's noise-cancelling headphones are actually excellent, comfortable to wear too. Dinner was then served, and let me remind you of what the menu said the starters would be, and then show what arrived. That probably was a crispy salad mix, but that certainly wasn't chicken tikka. A couple of crew members scratched their heads when I pointed out the discrepancy, and I was slightly bemused to learn that none of the crew had noticed the error, and no other passengers had pointed it out either. It was all very strange. Both of the dishes I did get were extremely bland, extremely dull, and extremely monotonous, so both went back extremely uneaten. The main was another story. I went for the tandoori chicken, the tandoori element arriving via a tub of sauce rather than being integrated into the chicken itself, but it was delicious and I really enjoyed it. Even the potato roasty donuts, which were a new one on me. Enjoyed with a glass of the Argentinian Cabernet Sauvignon, which also was excellent. Then, as I felt I'd missed out on the starter, I asked for the sundae and then the cheese plate. This took the attendant out of her service comfort zone, so she neglected to ask me how I wanted my sundae, which was quite disappointing, as the ice cream experience on American Airlines can be great fun. So I was presented with this. Delicious, but I obviously looked like a 3 squirts of hot fudge kind of guy rather than a berry, cream or pecan enthusiast. Not something worth dinging the bell over, I concluded, and it was still very nice. Then the cheese plate, which I really enjoyed too. A little bit light on the crackers, but the cheese was really nice. So overall it was a bit of a strange service. I enjoyed what I ate, but American didn't give me the full experience that the menu promised. So the meal was cleared, and one last feature of the seat revealed itself: the door. Currently, these are all the rage in airline seats, and this one was decent enough. Not tall enough to provide any real privacy to anyone passing in the aisle, but it gives a strong impression of privacy when seated and does cocoon you in very nicely. Meal done, it was lights off, and the crew went for their rest, which is a polite way of saying they disappeared. I'm pleased to report that they didn't lock the windows to dark mode, which is possible on these 787s, so you could stay in the daytime if you preferred, which I did. You can see the height of the doors here. I went to the back of the plane for a bit of a stretch and got barked at by a humorless attendant for lingering in the rear galley. Chill out, mate, I'm just having a 10-second stretch. It's 333 in American's economy cabin, with the front row of each seating block being classed as main cabin extra. That's 18 seats in total, which give you 3 inches of extra legroom. That layout improves to a 2-3-2 layout in their 4.5 row premium economy space. So back in my seat, and it was time to go flat. The seat converts smoothly from seat to bed. Now I am a big specimen, 6'4", and the bed was tight. It was tight at the shoulders when lying on my back, and the foot cubby did taper, so there was only a very limited position where I could lie completely flat. I was a bit disappointed actually, as the seat promised a lot, although there was a lot more space when lying on your side. This was a preferred seat, and some extra bedding is promised, including pyjamas, although none were offered on this flight. I'd suspect that these are being held back until American starts charging extra for these seats. You'll remember the mound of bedding I found on boarding? That included a memory foam mattress topper, which is reportedly excellent. Now, perhaps foolishly, as I didn't want to actually sleep on this flight, I didn't crack mine open, as I didn't want to burden American with unnecessary cleaning. I'm annoyed I didn't, as it is a key feature of this offering, but the rest of the bedding was very plush. I settled in to watch some content on my tablet. Time passed very comfortably actually. It was a little over 7 hours to Philadelphia that day, and in hindsight I should have had a nap, as I still had 2 more flights to review that day, but soon enough the US coast hove into view and we prepared to arrive into Philadelphia. But not before the second meal was served. I went for the rustic chicken focaccia, which was very nice, although I couldn't detect a whole lot of chicken. A few bonus bits on the tray too. As transatlantic second meals go, it was very good. As we descend into Philly, let's wrap this up. To be fair to American, they don't advertise these new seats as being revolutionary or game-changing. They say they'll offer a private premium experience, which it does, particularly in a premium suite like the one I occupied. Even if my private premium experience was diminished somewhat by my proximity to the galley, although this was much less of an issue in flight. It's not revolutionary and it's not game-changing, and the seat is still several notches behind leading business class seats out there like Qatar's Q Suite, JAL's private room seats or Finnair's Air Lounge seats. I flew a few other American Airlines seats on this trip and didn't think this new flagship suite was a massive improvement on them either. The flight was full, so I didn't get the opportunity to sit in a regular flagship seat, but I'd imagine it would be very similar, albeit with a little less space. It will be interesting to see what sort of premium American charges to move into these premium seats as and when that free trial period ends. You get some extra space, and from what I've seen, the premium mattress will be a valuable addition to the experience on an overnight flight eastbound, but I'm not sure I'd pay anything more than the token amount for the upgrade myself. But the seat is only part of the experience. The service on American has not been upgraded alongside the introduction of these seats. Indeed, the expansion of the cabin size puts even more pressure on the service side of the offering. And American service was really quite average. The crew just seems to suck the fun out of flying, particularly on routes like London. American's crew bid for the routes they fly, and the most senior crew get the routes they want. As London is a highly desirable destination, you tend to get a more mature crew on these flights who know exactly how to deliver the required service with the minimum exertion without ever going above and beyond the minimum standards required. There was no small talk, no jokes, and no warmth brought to the experience. And being barked at for daring to pass through the rear galley as I changed aisles during my brief period of exercise, that was just rude. And without spoiling upcoming videos, this was also my experience on the other 2 long-haul American flights I took. I've reviewed American's transatlantic experience before on a flight to Boston, which turned out to be one of the first flights on that route, so the plane ended up very lightly loaded. I had many pleasant interactions with the crew on that flight, mostly as they were bored to tears with having so little to do, so went out of their way to create interactions with passengers to help pass the time. After my more recent experiences, I realised that my Boston trip was the exception rather than the rule. The food was great in parts on this Philly flight, but it's pretty inexcusable for the menu to have been wrong and for the crew to have not noticed, particularly in this age of allergens where passengers really need to know what they're being served. Overall, it was a good experience. Any premium cabin flight is, but it was nowhere near as good as it should have been, and nowhere near as good as American's marketing team obviously thinks it is. So how much did I pay for this trip? Well, it's a bit complicated, but I'll take a moment to explain it in this, the first video about this trip. I paid £5,695 for the full around the world ticket, which is quite a lot. But I took the opportunity to squeeze some extra value out of that ticket by adding a Middle Eastern leg to the trip next March. I could have ended this trip in Oslo and called it quits, but adding 2 long-haul Qatar Airways flights for about £700 in additional taxes and fees felt like a great idea when I was booking. So the trip I'll report on in these videos starts in Oslo and ends in London and cost around £5,000. Splitting that based on miles flown means this leg cost me about £552, which is exceptional value for a flight that retails at over £2,000. And it earned me just under 9,000 Finnair tier points towards the 80,000 I need for Emerald status, plus just under 9,000 Avios. People tend to value Avios at 1p each, and that is certainly a good rule of thumb, so that's a £90 value as a minimum. But I've gotten over 5p in value for the last 940,000 of them that I've redeemed. So those Avios could be worth well over £400 if I can maintain that value on future redemptions. And off into a very quiet arrivals hall and another effortless global entry experience. It took me about 11 minutes to get from the plane, through immigration and back through security using TSA pre-clearance, which comes with global entry at no extra cost. I do love having global entry. So thanks for watching my review of this flight. I hope you enjoyed it. Like, comment, subscribe, and if you'd like to support what I'm doing more directly, there is a Patreon account, the link to which is below. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.